Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video letting you hopefully learn from a mistake that I made. Even though it's something that I actively preach about, it's something that I personally neglected to do, and it cost me time, money, energy, effort, all this kind of stuff. Thankfully it happened in a situation where the stakes were pretty low. However, it could have very easily happened under other circumstances, and it would have been a very bad thing. So we're going to go over what happened, and we've got two lessons to take away from it that'll hopefully prevent you from failing the way that I did. So, you guys probably haven't seen a lot of this rifle here on the channel. This is my very loose approximation of a what would Stoner do build using the KE Arms KP15 polymer lower, and trying to keep it as lightweight as possible without compromising durability, reliability, etc., etc. So this last weekend, and it's worth noting at this point in time, I have about 700 or so rounds through it. I'm going to be taking this thing through a class this weekend with the Task Collective to hopefully get this thing over 1,000 rounds and hopefully prove out some of the parts on this build. But one of the things I was doing this last weekend, in addition to getting this ACSS Micro Cyclops zeroed in, was doing a heat stress test on this barrel. If you've seen the videos that InRange TV have done, they did a test with the Fax and Firearms pencil barrel, which is what is in this rifle, to see what kind of point of impact shift they get once the barrel heats up, because that's been an issue with previous iterations of pencil barrels. So, not to say that I don't believe the results that they got. All I'm trying to do is add to the data set, and I figured I would do a similar test myself just to increase the amount of statistically significant data out there. So I fired 5 rounds at 100 yards, immediately dumped 50 rounds through a drum, and then fired another 5 rounds using the same point of aim as before to try to see what happened as the barrel heated up. If my group grew, if my group shifted but stayed the same size, etc., etc. And what happened was a little bit surprising. So I'll show you a picture of the target as I saw it afterward. And it's worth mentioning, I didn't evaluate the target after shooting the first 5 rounds. So I didn't see the target for the first time through my spotting scope until after all 60 rounds had been fired. And needless to say, I was surprised by what I saw. So when I get to my target, I have 6 shots on paper. And then I had a couple high on the cardboard. I was using a cardboard IPSTIC style target as a backer just to hopefully get nice clean holes. And I fired the 50 round drum over the top of it. So having a couple hits high on the head kind of made sense when I was shooting rounds over the top of it. But again, I only had 6 rounds on paper and they were kind of strung vertically. So that's 4 shots that were unaccounted for out of the second 5-shot group. And I was kind of worried because when InRange did their testing, they had no significant point of impact shift. Their group grew, but the point of impact shift was minimal, or at least negligible. And I had apparently shifted so much that I was now off paper and off cardboard backer, so at least 9 inches in either direction, left to right, or even more vertically up or down. And that's a really, 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 really bad result after only getting the barrel hot from 55 rounds before shooting the last 5-shot group. So I was trying to figure out what went on. Now I'm using a Midwest Industries ultralight handguard here, using a titanium barrel nut. It's my first time using a titanium barrel nut, and I thought, well, maybe the thermal index of titanium was such that once it heated up, the barrel got loose and that was causing the issues. I was trying to do all this troubleshooting, trying to guess what happened, and I even brought it to work the next day to try to figure out, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, figure out what happened from people that are smarter than I am. And then my coworker walked up, grabbed my optic, and it literally was like almost falling off of the gun. So we were doing some diagnostics here at the store to try to figure out what was causing the issue, if it was the titanium barrel nut or something like that. But I think Art figured out what the problem is. A little bit of action there, so that might have been the problem. So I'm going to get that Loctite down and we're going to try it again, I guess. Don't ask me how I didn't notice it. I can tell you at the range, my buddy and I were trying to squeeze in the 60 rounds right before the deadline to stop shooting at that range due to the time of day. But long story short, I did not notice that this thing had not only become loose, but like grossly loose to where it was actually like shaking. And I even sent a video of it to my buddy, and he was dumbfounded that we didn't notice it either. But it definitely explained why my group shifted, was because my optic might as well have been off the gun at that point because I wasn't getting any consistency. So basically, I wasted 60 rounds of 5.56, which even at my cost as an employee at a gun store is like 50 cents a round. So $30 of ammo just right down the drain. Time filming, time driving it in 45 minutes to the range. Granted, we got other stuff done, and another 45 to 50 minutes back. Big amount of effort and money expended just to find out that I should have Loctited the optic. Now, I've said before, and I've said to many people, and I'll continue to say, Loctite anything that's going on any gun you have any idea of using for a serious purpose. And I did not live by that on this gun. Now, I can give you excuses all day long, like I'd already planned on swapping out the mount, and in fact, I already have the replacement mount that I'm going to put on this that would negate that issue. But the moral of the story is I didn't Loctite it, and once the gun started getting hot, all of that torque started to loosen as things start to expand, and the optic came loose. Now, thankfully, this happened in an environment where that wasn't life-threatening, but it could have, potentially happened, since this is, again, a gun that I would have in mind for a serious purpose. And in fact, did kind of get called into that for a potential situation where I might have to use it. That happened fairly recently. Not going to go super into that, but long story short, this is a gun that I am going to grab in certain instances where I might need a rifle to defend myself or other people. So, again, 2 lessons that come from this are A, Loctite your stuff, because again, I wasted time, money, energy, and all that into something that would have been very, very simple to prevent from happening just by putting a little dab of Loctite on the screws that fasten this thing on. And it's really, a dab will do ya. It's totally worth it. I know there's stuff that companies will tell you not to Loctite. Trust me, you want to Loctite it. Now, the second lesson that I think you can take away from this is how important it is to actually get out there and, I think, train with your guns. Now, even though this didn't happen in the context of training, I had taken this thing out to the range several times with this optic mounted in this way, a couple times to get filming done with it, get some testing done with it, and nothing was an issue. And even shooting immediately prior to this thing coming loose, this thing was holding nice tight little groups at 50 yards. However, once this gun got hot, that all went right out the window. And that is what's typically going to happen when you take a training class. If all you're doing is shooting, maybe 100, 200 rounds a day, taking some time letting the gun cool in between strings of fire, you're really not going to find these faults with your gun. However, in the context of a training class where you're getting your gun hot, you're continuing to shoot it hot, that's where problems really start to arise and make themselves known. If you have taken a class, like the kind of class where it's like a 2-day class, that's 1,000 rounds, either your gun has had parts come loose and fall off, or you've seen other people in the class have parts come loose or fall off, and especially home builds start coming loose and falling apart. And immediately up until that thing happened to that person, whether it be you or it's definitely happened to me, that person or I would have said, oh, these parts are great, I've never had any issues, totally good to go. But in the crucible that is the training environment, those things start to make themselves known. And that is why a lot of people who have taken training tend not to put much credence into claims made by people who haven't stress tested their guns in that way, or even stress tested themselves in that way. So hence why people like myself, it might sound arrogant, but we are a little incredulous towards claims about the quality of parts or components from people who haven't actually gotten out there and used their guns in a more intense training environment. So again, 2 things that I want you to take away is Loctite your stuff and also go out there and train. Again, that is the crucible, the best crucible, since, you know, we're hopefully never going to find ourselves in a position where we're actually fighting with these guns. That is the closest facsimile we can get to actually put our guns through some strenuous activity and really get them hot and push them to their limit and see what works and what doesn't. Now, there are other ways of doing stuff to stress yourself and your gun, like doing some competition style stuff. But unless it's a high round count competition type setting, you're probably never going to get your gun truly hot. So again, there's things you can take away, but not everything. So please do yourself a favor and seek out some training. Like I said, I'm taking this thing through a class this weekend that should put this thing just over 1,000 rounds, and I'm very much looking forward to taking that with the Task Collective. I'll have more on that later. I'll have a lot more on this gun later, as well as the actual heat stress test with this barrel to see if I get any point of impact shift or if I get results similar to in-range TV. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go and throw that in the comment section down below. If you have either had something come loose on your gun or seen it happen on someone else's gun during a training class, go ahead and share that story down below. But anyway, with all that being said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching. I'm anxious to see how it did. I don't have a thermometer to see how hot the barrel is, but I can guarantee you I don't want to touch it right now.
At least you didn't have to touch the hammer.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I intentionally did not want to rest on the handguard or support the handguard. Because that boy's warm even from here.
Oh, really? From that far away?
Oh yeah, feel it.
Oh, especially with the this handguard with all the Nice
thing is with how open that handguard is,
it'll cool quick.